What thing have you overheard that has broken your heart? Last night, I heard a little boy beg his mom not to go into a liquor store. Some background: I live in Oklahoma, where the only place you can purchase alcohol besides Low Point beer is in a licensed, dedicated liquor store, which can only be open at certain times of day. Anyway, I'm heading to the one by my house to get a bottle of scotch. I'm walking in, when I hear a little boy crying, "Mommy, you can't go in there. You don't need liquor." His mom replies, "Yes, I do. Now shut up and wait in the car." Not exactly overheard, but last week I was chilling out at a buddy's house. At around midnight, a bunch of cop cars and an ambulance show up to his neighbor's house. We notice the cops are talking to the little boy who lives there. We know the boy pretty well. He is a good friend of my buddy's son. We're going to call him Martin, and he is about 7. After the police leave, Martin is sitting outside, and we call him over to see if everything is okay. Martin's grandpa lives with him, so we assume something happened with him, because of the ambulance. But as soon as we say, "Hey Martin, what was going on there?" he instantly yells, "Nobody hit me. My daddy doesn't hit me." It made us so sad. That's really sad. I used to do social work with kids that have been abused and neglected. Parents will threaten their kids. They tell them people will take them away to a bad place, a stranger's house, if they tell anybody about being beaten. They warn them not to talk to anyone about it, including teachers and child protective services. Very sad. I was at the local casino around 15 years ago, and they were dragging a woman out for causing a disturbance. She was yelling, "He is spending our rent money!" Apparently he was at the table and wouldn't stop playing, and she was trying to interrupt it. Made me super sad. The sad part here is that they are dragging the woman out, instead of the man gambling away his rent money. For my son's 9th birthday, I took my son and a handful of friends to the movies, then to pizza, then they all slept over. On the way home from pizza, the kids were commenting on great the night was, and were saying thank you, etc. I said in reply, "We love having kids over." Out of the blue, one boy quietly whispered to me, "My mom doesn't love me." Broke my heart into bits. I asked why he said that, and he said, "She always left me. I would wake up and she would be gone." Come to find out, he had just been placed with his dad that he barely knew. The state had taken him away from his mom for neglect, leaving him every night alone to go to the bar. It had been going on for years, and the neighbors would hear him crying alone and call the cops. She is a raging alcoholic and a drug addict still. His dad had only met him once before, and was currently living with a new girlfriend, and she didn't like kids. His son was now sleeping on the floor of the girlfriend's apartment as there was no room for him. It was fucking heartbreaking. To make matters worse, he sat alone every day after school on the steps of the library waiting for his dad, sometimes till past 7 p.m. When I found out, I had him over every single day, eating a snack, doing homework together with my son, eating dinner most nights. Less than a year later, his father asked if I could take him for a while. He had broken off with the girlfriend and had nowhere to go, and nowhere to bring his son. No problem. I'm a single mom of one son, but I always have room for anyone who needs to stay. His dad brought over all of his clothes in a garbage bag, everything he owns. He never, officially, was mine, but I became his adopted mom since that time, bringing him to the doctors, going to parent-teacher conferences, music concerts, etc. He is 19 now and doing fantastic. He made it through high school at an honors AP level, and then went to college on full scholarship. But better than that, he is an awesome person, funny, smart, kind, loving. I love my adopted son. I have to thank you from the absolute bottom of my heart. Would you like to know why? I was in a similar situation to that young boy you took in. A family, very near and dear to my heart, took me in and cared for me during some of my most formative years because my own parents weren't there. I call my adopted parents Mom and Dad because I can't stomach the thought of calling my biological parents mother and father. Just know that people such as yourself have a very special place in my heart. Thank you for caring. P.S. Who is dicing onions in my office? So not cool. I didn't overhear this, but it seems similar. When I was a child, my brother used to kick the shit out of me every day when my parents weren't home. It wasn't just fighting, it was torture. He used to tie me up, shoot me with BB guns, whip me with tea towels, elastic bands, have huge elastic band phobia these days. heating up teaspoons on cooker and putting them on my legs, etc. Not nice, especially seeing as I am a girl 3 years his junior. One day my mum was out for a rare night out playing darts, and my dad was supposed to stay home with us. I think I was about 9 or 10. He is an alcoholic, so nothing will stand in his way of going to the pub, which was right at the bottom of my road, so he wasn't far away. I think he thought that made it okay. Well, my brother had been hinting at what he was going to do when my dad went out. Sitting in the living room, he had a BB gun on his lap covered by a magazine which he kept showing me subtly. Needless to say, I was terrified. I begged my dad not to go out, crying and pleading. I never used to grass on my brother, no matter what he did, but I was so scared that I was crying and crying, asking my dad to stay home just this once. He knew what was up, but he ignored it and went out anyway. I sat at his bedroom window and watched him leave. My neighbor saw me and told me years later it was the saddest thing she had seen because I was obviously so scared. Needless to say, I was terrorized as expected. Damn, that's fucked up. I am a bigger brother, and it sickens me that somebody would abuse this power. I'm 30 now and my brother is 24. To this day my worst nightmare is something happening to him, and I cannot prevent it. I teared up. Sorry, your brother is an a-hole. I work in a castle that holds medieval banquets, one side of which is that we give out free wine. It's 2.5 hours long, so if you try, you've got enough time to get pretty shit-faced. One day, the banquet was finishing, and we were saying goodbye to the guests. This one woman, she was fairly trolleyed, knocking into the walls, knocking shit off of them, insulting me, my manager, and her manager who was up visiting. Her husband was out in the smoking area outside, ignoring the situation, apart from sending his probably 8-year-old son in to try and get her out of the building. Come on, Mom, time to go. Dad says we have to leave now. The castle is closing, etc. I could hear in his voice that he'd seen this behavior repeatedly. It was pleading, and sad, but resigned at the same time. So we got her out the door. Myself and my colleagues went to change out of costume, and collected our tips. Maybe 5 minutes later, I left by the same door, and headed to the car. I found the woman a few yards off the gravel path, arse over tit in a large patch of briars. She'd gone to look at the view of the bay, the castles beside the sea, slipped, and fallen completely into the thorns, covered in blood from 100 tiny cuts. The son was bleeding like Simba trying to wake up Mufasa after the stampede. Come on, Mom, you can do it. Just try to stand up. I know you can, Mom. Please, please, just try, Mom. I don't know how he held it together. There were tears in his voice, if not in his eyes. And the motherfucking dad? He was down at the road at the end of the path, maybe 60 yards away, leaning on a wall, smoking a cigarette, without a care in the world. I walked down to him, and hissed at him to go and get his car, and drive it to the foot of the path, as his wife was incapable of walking to the car park. He was as aloof as motherfucking Viserys Targaryen, and nonchalantly sauntered off to the car park. Me and 2 other staff members managed to get her upright, and I cleaned up her cuts with a med kit from work. She was out of her mind by this point, laughing and gurgling and wiping her fucking blood over us. And her kid embarrassed and ashamed and crying nearly. God, I simultaneously so sad and angry driving home after work that night. A friend of mine got drunk at a barbecue. Kids and husband were there too. When it was explained to her that someone would drive her home, she went ballistic. I hurried her kids into my car, didn't have keys, just didn't want them to hear the cursing, ranting awfulness spewing from their mother. Her oldest son asked me what was wrong with her, and I explained. Mommy just drank too much bad stuff and it has made her sick. She's just sick right now, but she will feel better later, he said. Oh, she's drunk again. I felt so horrible. Her youngest was crying, and she kept asking me, how much longer until Mommy feels better? I didn't know what to say. I hated everything about that night. This just brought back a terrible memory. My dad was a bad alcoholic, real bad. Needless to say, the weekends he came to pick us up were always interesting. This time he took us, 2 girls, about 7 and 10, to a barbecue in a park and got so drunk he fell, hit his head on the corner of a brick barbecue, and passed out. We knew no one there. They were probably all drunk. I remember thinking that he was gonna die. He got sober when I was 12 and died when I was 25. He was an awesome dad for those 13 years. I overheard a maintenance worker in my apartment arguing with his drunk wife one night. Her son, his stepson, about 5 years old, yelled, I hate you, you're not my dad. Pretty sure the guy started crying afterwards. He's such a nice guy too. It's a shame to admit, but my family has a drinking problem on both sides of the gene pool. My little cousin, she's around 12 or so at the time, came up to her mom, my aunt, crying. Her mother asked what was wrong, and this little girl just grabs her mom's leg and say, "Dad is drinking beer, that means he's going to hurt you tonight, mommy." My eyes just swelled up as I choked back the tears and walked away. I cashier at a grocery store. Guy comes in with 2 cartfuls of just every kind of junk food you can imagine. Everything is microwavable, and there's not a vegetable or fruit to be seen. It's all utter shit, and $400 worth of it, too. The guy has his 5 children with him, probably about 2 years apart each. The oldest is 10, and he's helping by pushing the other cart. They pull into my register and start unloading. All the while, the 10-year-old boy and 8-year-old girl are talking to their dad. They're trying to keep their voices down, but I can hear them saying, "Dad, this isn't good food. We need good food and this will be all of our money." The dad shushes them and tells them he knows what he's doing and it's all fine. They pay with food stamps, and I can see on the computer that that is all of their money for the month, gone in one order. The 10-year-old is on the verge of tears while he's pushing the cart, telling his dad that none of this will last them, and now they don't have any more money. I was walking home from the store, didn't have a car at the time, about 5 years ago. This little boy, who was probably around 4 or 5, and his mother were walking hand in hand somewhere, presumably to the park that was nearby. They aren't saying much, just talking about the trees and gardens outside people's houses. Things get quiet for a moment, and then the kid drops a bomb. "Mommy, why did Daddy die?" He didn't say it in a sad tone, but almost curious. The woman gets this really dejected look on her face, starts to cry, and she sort of picks up speed. It wasn't that she was deliberately trying to ignore his question, I just think she didn't have the words to explain to him. I thought about it for the rest of the way home. Gave my dad a hug that night. My sister's husband died very unexpectedly last week. I attended the funeral, where my 3-year-old nephew was as well. While playing slides on the projector during the silence, his son looks up and says, "That's Daddy. He'll be home soon to play with me." I was able to keep my composure until I heard that. What thing have you overheard that has broken your heart? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.